Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, the Chief Sales Sergeant here at Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, we believe that hope is not a sales strategy. So we're bringing on guests since day one, folks that are best-selling authors, Hall of Fame speakers, national sales managers, international sales managers, all to talk about how to remove hope from how we sell. Because believe it or not, a lot of salespeople from the very first day on the job, they're, without knowing it, falling back on hope, hoping their deals close, hoping people return their calls, hoping their customers will connect the value of what that salesperson is trying to sell with the outcomes that that customer needs in their lives and in their business. So here at Bulletproof Selling, with our guests, we build a sales system around a different issue every single episode that you can use. You can take it, move into your team, move into how you sell, no matter the size of your team or the size of your goals. Now, of course, my favorite guests, because, hey, I'm a military veteran myself, are those other veterans that we're able to locate that are managing sales teams. Because these folks understand the power of process. But they also understand that, just like in the military, we're often doing selling, if you will, the same thing day after day after day. In a lot of our industries and a lot of our markets, there's not a massive new release of product, of service. It's the same thing, pretty much. So a lot of salespeople fall back on the hope that their customers will understand the value of what they sell, even if what they sell doesn't change that much. Well, Justin is in a similar industry, so I'm excited to learn about, one, how he transitioned his military service into sales, what he carried over from one realm to the other that's really helping him lead his team in a better way. And then two, how do we take something that we've been selling for a while and reinvigorate it on our team and, of course, in the market that we're selling it to? So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome onto the show Justin Parke, Army veteran and national sales manager with Trader Interactive. Justin, welcome, sir, to Bulletproof Selling.
Hey, Sean, good morning, and thank you for having me on.
Awesome, bud. Well, as I kind of teed you up, Army veteran, I want to know, man, how did you take what you learned in the Army and drive it into sales? Because that's not something that we hear a lot of, but I know everybody's got a story, so I want to hear yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Sales is something I never did before the military and being in the Army. And it was really incredible when you get out into the sales force. You see a lot of the same principles that are taught, the discipline, the effort, the kind of going over, around, and through roadblocks to make sure you hit your objective, right? And being in the infantry, I think it was so paralleling to when I hit the ground running as a sales, entry-level salesperson. I knew that I just needed to work harder. I knew that I had to train to be better. And I knew that no matter what was put in front of me, no matter what obstacle, I could think on my feet, right? I could maneuver around that obstacle to get to what I needed to, which was making that sell and moving the business forward. So as I took into the sales force, I just really applied a lot of those same principles and was very successful as a sales rep, and then moved into the leadership role and previous companies in management with sales, and now with my current company, and really trying to instill some of those same principles that I learned from military and my experience that made me successful, and really project that onto them and get them to understand it, because they haven't been in the military, the ones that I'm managing now, so they aren't familiar with that same strategy and structure that we are. So really trying to instill what I learned into them so they can see the success that also has for them.
So that's exactly what we hear from a lot of our veterans, that discipline, the accountability, the continuous improvement that we use to survive on the battlefield in the military, how it all transfers over into sales. So I'm so glad that you're bringing that to a team of people that didn't have that military experience. I'm curious about the team that you're leading now. I know you're a national sales manager. Talk to us a little bit about what your team sells, because the conversations you and I had prior, I'm really interested to learn about the things that are kind of consistent, right? You're selling the same product, service, day after day, month after month, year after year. Talk to us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so we actually sell digital advertising. The realm that I support within Trader Interactive specifically is our equipment dealers across the US and even in Canada. So we have a vast population of people we sell to, but we do have a finite product offering within what we do. So whether it be advertising packages that just include getting exposure, we can finagle enhancements to help get you more exposure. But at the end of the day, we have a sheet of products that we're able to sell. And the team that I manage has accounts that they're assigned to. So 250 accounts, So they're selling to that same book of business month in, month out. They have sales goals they need to hit. They need to continue selling. So we have to find ways to add the same product in higher quantities, or we have to try to move them up into new levels within what we offer. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like going back to the well again and again and saying, hey, give me some more, right? And we have to do that to move the business forward. And so I think a lot of times there is where we hit our point of this is where we need to train a little further on it. But that's kind of a little insight about what we sell and who we're selling to.
And a lot of salespeople I know find themselves in this position where because they're limited by geography or just the number of people in an industry that can buy what they sell. We're trying to grow volume against the same series of leads, the same series of prospects, the same series of customers. And that means we have to reposition what we sell in a new way almost constantly. Even if the actual thing that we're selling doesn't change, we have to be the ones as salespeople to provide different and more value. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation because I know a lot of salespeople that are listening and watching right now are in the same boat. So talk to us a little bit about the hope that you see play into the industry, because I know your company doesn't just sell digital advertising to that vertical. So you got salespeople that sell to a couple of different verticals in different industries. Well, talk to us a little bit about where you see hope entering the picture here. Because if I'm trying to sell against the same series of customers, the same number of accounts in the pipeline, so to speak, the same thing, eventually I'm just going to hope that these folks will buy more. But if I'm not doing anything different, that's a slim chance. So talk to us a little bit about where you see hope entering the picture for these types of salespeople.
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted where hope can come into a sales role. You look at, it starts with, I hope they pick up the phone, right? I hope they respond to my email that I'm sending out. I hope they show up to the scheduled meeting we put on the calendar, because at the end of the day, we can't control what other people are doing out there. We do have a bit of hope out there saying, we've done the right things to get this started. We're hoping they're going to come to at least hear what we have to say. So I think that's the first level of hope that we hit in the industry and in the role as salespeople. And then you go into the selling piece, right? You're talking to a customer that you just talked to 30, 60, 90 days ago, even, that you've talked to for the last 3-4 years because they're in your book of business and you have a great relationship with them. And that's wonderful. But at the end of the day, you're kind of hoping they're going to see the value in what you're about to present to them. You're kind of hoping that they're willing to spend a little bit more money. You're hoping that they're going to put that trust in what you're saying as the subject matter expert. And they're going to say, all right, Sean, I believe what you're saying and I trust what you're saying. I'm going to buy into it. And so we live on that hope of, I hope they're going to buy into what I'm saying because I need to, right, to be successful. So I think a lot of it's hope, and we just kind of get, I think that's the rush that you get when you make a sale, is that hope has now turned into success. And so I think that's where we see a lot of it.
So it'd almost be like in the military, I'll use an infantry term because I know you'll get it. If our folks are just, wandering on patrol and they happen to step right into the middle of a great mission for themselves, they just stumble on some intelligence, for instance. Hey, they're excited. Their chain of command is excited. Everybody's really fired up about this, but we can't replicate you stumbling onto a bunch of intelligence that's usable intel. Where we have to, again, plan this. We got to step back and say, all right, if we were going to do this intentionally, what would it look like? How do we locate the people that have the intelligence? How do we get to their position? How do we make sure they give it over to us without a whole bunch of, lost lives and harm and injury? So, yeah, same thing in sales. So I'm really curious then, if your folks are calling on the same book of business and we're trying to move them away from hope, what are just some of the things that you found to really make the difference in your folks generating new conversations with current customers? Because if I don't show up bringing new value, why would my customer want to talk to me? Like, hey, we're already set on that contract. We're good. If you don't have anything new to offer, let's talk again in 6 months, which I bet your salespeople tend to hear once or twice a week. Talk to us a little bit about the value that you're beginning to see them having to reorient or represent in order to have the courage and the confidence to drive those new conversations with current customers.
Yeah, I think one area of focus that we really moved into to try to move the needle on that hope becoming success is data, right? I think data speaks volumes because it's right there in front of you. It's in print. So we're, as a digital marketing company, we're looking constantly at what is our market doing? what's working, what's not working, what's popular. And then we can step back and we can analyze the current strategy in place, and we can devise a new strategy and say, okay, if we were able to pull this lever a little bit harder, we were able to add this product, we could help you take that next step forward. And here's the proof, right? We lay out the data behind it. So we're not just, it takes a little bit of that hope from just, I hope you're going to buy into it, to here, let me lay you the blueprint on why this is going to be successful. It goes just from saying, trust in me and believe in me, to let me put some proof in front of you and show you what this can do for you. And I think that change of conversation, that confidence, and that supporting element is what can help us and has been helping us move the needle forward.
So this is going to be a great sales system, because for anybody selling something to the same book of business, if you can show up and you can be the salesperson that owns the data on what the industry is doing, what the trends are that are coming up that your customer may not know about, but even more so, the data on the customer that you're currently servicing, to give them some insight into some things that they've already paid for that they may not be aware of, either trends going up or trends that they need to be aware of, because if they don't make a change, this stuff's going to start to go down. They're going to get less ROI. So this is going to be an awesome system. I know you remember, Justin, from the military, we have acronyms for just about everything. In the Marine Corps, it was like BAMSIS and JJ did tie buckle. And I know you had a bunch in the Army as well. Well, right. Here at Bulletproof Selling, we use a simple acronym to build great sales systems, because every new one trims away hope from how we sell. We use the acronym TRIM. So the T in TRIM is the trigger. Now, if I'm leveraging data to sell the same thing to existing customers, to get them to renew, to get them to buy more of what I'm selling, when do I need to trigger this system? Is it when I find myself at the renewal period with the current customer? Is it before I even onboard a prospect into a customer? When do I trigger a system that allows me to leverage data to sell more and more often to the same book of business?
Yeah, I think you really have to trigger it ahead of that point, right? You have to get in front of it. I think that's the biggest and most important component, because if you're not proactive, then the reactive side of it is so much more difficult. If you miss your window of opportunity because you weren't proactive, then you're chasing your tail trying to do so. Maybe you missed the budgeting season. Maybe you missed the first of the year. Maybe you missed the height of the season where the product you want to put forward could really benefit them. If you're not forward thinking about that, then you're kind of behind the eight ball, which means somebody else is taking on that opportunity and you're missing out on it as a customer.
So as forward thinking as possible. And because we are talking about customers that we're already doing business with and leveraging data to help them make the decision to buy more often, getting ahead of that period then triggers one of the first things I should probably learn about this customer in the buying cycle, in the sales cycle, is when do you make decisions around this kind of stuff, right? When does that budget become available? When do you sit down with your team and allocate that budget so we know how much is available for marketing at whatever time of the year? So I love getting ahead of this as early and as often as possible. Now let's move into the R in TRIM, which is making this a repeatable process. So I'd like to get a couple of steps. If you remember from our time in the military, checklists basically ran things, because the last thing I want to do in the middle of a firefight is try to think about steps A, B, C, and D. Right? I need my checklist right there to tell me what to do. And that's why we train for it. That's why we adapt it. That's why it's basically 90% of our time is preparing for that stressful moment. So if we're preparing our salespeople for that stressful moment when they're on the phone with a customer, trying to get them to renew or to buy more, what are the 4 or 5 or 6 things that I need to do, in what order, to make sure that I'm gathering the data, communicating it to the customer, leveraging it to help them make a better decision, and then even at the tail end of this, leveraging that data again to make sure that we do set a next step for whatever that next step of the sales process is? What is my checklist of things I should be doing as a salesperson?
Yeah, I think, you already touched on some of those really important pieces, right? I think it's the research and the preparation, right? We talk about it in the military, we all say we train and we train and we train and we train. And it's to prepare you so that it is kind of that muscle memory, right? That's what we're trying to get to, is muscle memory. And so I think in sales, you have to not only do it and replicate it day in and day out, but you have to practice it. You have to learn it, and you have to be adaptable within that. So I think first and foremost, you prepare, right? By gathering the data. You go into the conversation with a consistent message you've done your research, and so you know what you're going to deliver. You know your facts. You know how you want to position it, right? You've built your roadmap for success within that call. And then I think the last part of that is the adaptability piece, right? Because you can have a great plan until, we say the first shot's fired, right? Then a plan can go out the window, right? Then you have to adapt and you have to think on your feet. And so your preparation prepares you for that adaptability, right? You've prepared for possible outcomes. You've prepared for potential objections and overcoming different scenarios. You kind of already are anticipating what your customer is going to say back to you so that you're ready to jump on that objection and you're ready to move forward on it. So I think the preparing, the execution, and then just being adaptable in it are the steps that we kind of go through to be successful.
And I'd like to touch on something that I think would help a lot of salespeople out, which is how do we, in step number one, it was probably the most critical step of the whole thing, right? How do we actually research and prep for this so that we're ready to go? Talk to me a little bit about what are some things that might be specific to your industry, but we can work on it and make it general enough for all salespeople. What are the data related things that I can research and prep so that I have something new to present to this customer in our next conversation? And it might be trends coming up. It might be ROI they're already getting or that they could be getting if they moved into a more frequent buy or a more frequent use of our service. What are the data points I should really be researching so I step in with great information?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever have too much data, but I think if we're looking at some key things to take a look at is obviously what's been happening within their own performance, right? You need to know what they've been doing, how they've been trending. Are they trending positively and we need to take the next step? Have they been trending negatively in their leads, in their visits? So maybe we need to get them the additional exposure. Maybe it's a new product offering we need to bring in front of them. So that's really important because you need to be able to talk to exactly what's happening with that individual customer because they want to know, right? Data points are great, but if they're like, it's not happening to me, then that's not applicable to me. So if you can go in and say, here's what's going on right now with your business, and here's the opportunities I see, it speaks volumes. And then you need to know what's happening in their market, right? So once you know what they're doing, are they performing above market? Are they performing in average of market? Or are they performing below market? Because nothing will fire somebody up more than to say, hey, your market is outpacing you in performance. You're kind of missing the 8 ball. The little bit of that pride says, I need to get in the game. I need to be doing more to be successful. And so knowing what's happening with the individual dealers or the customer, know what's happening in their market are two of the biggest things you can do to go in and be ready for that conversation. And third would be preparing yourself with what you want to offer, right? Knowing what services you're going to provide them moving forward to help them take that next step.
Awesome. So if we've got then a great system built out for what I need to be doing before, during, and even after the call. Let's move into the piece that you mentioned, which was improvement, right? Actually figuring out how do we adapt. So I'd like to talk about adapting this entire system. Same way that we've done in the military for generations. We don't fight wars the same way we did in the Revolutionary War. They taught you and I a lot of different tactics because we learned standing in a line and just getting shot at, probably not the most effective way to fight a battle. So if I want to improve this system, let's take it. I've been using it for, a quarter with my people. What are the things that I want to do with my team to improve it, to make sure that this process of prepping my material ahead of time, determining what solutions I'm going to offer, making sure that I have my game plan and my strategy as I'm walking into that call, assessing what are the things that could go wrong, the objections, the things I need to say to turn them around. How am I going to improve this system to make sure that it stays relevant with the market, with what's happening in the conversations with my customers?
Yeah, I think you have to, well, for me personally, as being in management, I have to stay on top of those things so that I can train them on, changes in the market, changes in the way of doing business, the trends in the industry as a whole. So I sit in meetings and learn about the industry as a whole, and then I nail down to these folks as far as how are we going to then take that and move it forward and into an individual market, right? I look at a big picture, I teach them the big picture so they know that data, and then I move it forward to say, all right, we're going to train on what I'm hearing. We're going to train on what's happening in your markets. I'm going to teach you a little bit about what to say and how we're going to position these things that you want to be pushing forward on. And so I think I take the large part of the funnel, and then we begin to shrink it down and focus and narrow it in so that they can then push it forward.
So you're taking all up here at strategy, and you're making sure that your folks have the skill set to be able to tactically implement that in their conversations. It's funny how the military transfers into sales, isn't it? That's why I love it.
It really does.
So if I've got,
it really does.
It really does. So if I've got the trigger, I know my repeatable steps, I know what I'm going to be doing to improve it. And would you recommend, paying attention to the market probably is a constant thing for you. But as far as that training goes, how often are you taking what you learn at the strategy level and bringing it down to your folks to train? Is it every day? Is it once a week? Is it once a month, once a quarter? How often is that happening?
Yeah. So we meet 3 times a week as a team to talk strategy, to talk what's happening in the market. And then I actually meet with them individually every single week. So, and then in between that, as situations arrive, we're having conversations. So I think it's every day you have to be talking about it. Every day you have to be looking at new opportunity. Every day you have to be looking at how to take the next step forward in positioning that, because tomorrow's a new day. And I think you need to be better tomorrow than you were today. And the only way you're going to do that is continue to learn and adapt and position things in a more successful way every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'm going to move into the final element of this acronym, this sales build that we're doing, which is the M in trim, and it's the measurement. So I want to know, is the work I'm doing ahead of time, because it's going to take me a little bit more work as I get the hang of this, to do the research, prep a plan, assess what could go wrong. I could just be smiling and dialing, right? So I need to know, is this system getting me the results I need? It's better than the way I was doing things before by falling back on hope. What would you recommend that we measure? Is it renewal rates? Is it the number of customers, buying new things from us? Is it something that happens earlier in the renewal of the sale, in the sales process? Is it a leading indicator? What do you recommend I measure to make sure this is a better way of doing business?
Well, I think first and foremost, you measure the sales side, right? The revenue generated every month. Are we generating new and additional revenue every month? Because if we're not selling, then we're not generating new revenue. We're staying stagnant, and nobody wants to stay stagnant as salespeople. We want to continue to move forward. So we need to measure the revenue. Are we growing that monthly across our books of business? And then I think we have to measure as a satisfaction side of it, which kind of comes from our retention side, right? Are we maintaining the business that we have as well as growing it? Because if you grow, $5,000-$10,000, but you also lose 5 or 10 because you weren't able to position the value to those customers, then you've gone nowhere again, right? So selling is a big piece of it to move it forward, but you also have to measure it by how many customers you're maintaining so that your baseline is flat and you're doing nothing but growing, right? You can't take 2 steps forward, 2 steps back and expect to be moving in the right direction. So that's kind of where we look at measuring that.
Those are amazing things to measure. Not only the additional revenue you're generating, but also retention, customer satisfaction, net promoter score. There's a variety of ways that customers and companies will do that for one another. But the idea is, I need to know, am I really providing enough value with the data, with the sales process, to make these customers want to stay with us? Because eventually the market will shift. What you sell might become more expensive than your competitors. Are your customers still sticking around because they understand they're going to get more value out of you than any other salesperson? So this is a great end-to-end system for leveraging data to increase sales with an existing customer base, something I know we all want to do more of. Well, Justin, if people want to get deeper into your world, into what you're doing with your company at Trader Interactive, how do they get into that world? Do they connect with you on LinkedIn? Do we go to a website? What do we do?
Yeah, anyone is always welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Justin Parke. I believe it's public. You can shoot me a message. Also, inside of Trader Interactive, there's plenty of touch points, whether you're looking for a role in the business, you want to learn more. We have a ton of resources that you can go to. You can Google our company and join the website. But if you want to talk to me directly, LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me, and I'm always open to respond.
Awesome. We'll make sure we're tagging you on LinkedIn through the release of this episode and the podcast. And if you're watching us live on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing to that Bulletproof Selling channel, or Battlefield Selling. And also on the podcast, if you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere the podcast can be found, leave us a review. Let other salespeople know we don't have to rely on hope anymore. Through these episodes, through the interviews that we're doing here with great leaders like Justin, we can remove hope from almost every aspect of how we sell. Well, thanks, Justin, for serving your country, giving back there. And thanks for giving back to the sales community today by sharing this awesome system that I know you're training your folks in. Let's get out there. Let's make selling bulletproof.
Thanks, Sean.